In 4 games this season, do you feel like you've had less time to get open and create space for yourself?
Nah, I'm open. I'm always open.
Treats, directs, fires for Chase. He's got it. The NFL head coach. End zone shot. It's caught for the touchdown. Chase. The block. Burrow going deep. He's got him. Touchdown.
I think Jamar Chase is already the best receiver the Bengals have ever had.
This is just next level. Probably the best in the league. Almost at running back skill set.
Burrow fires, caught, chased. They try to chase him down, and they cannot. Touchdown. Looks that way, throws that way, caught.
Burrow will fire anyway, and he's got him. Burrow airs it out. Chase. Hello, touchdown, Cincinnati.
Since his rookie season, Jamar Chase has quickly proven himself as not only one of the most talented wide receivers, but also one of the best players in the entire NFL. In the 2024 season, he won the Triple Crown, leading all players in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, joining an elite list since 1990 that includes Jerry Rice, Sterling Sharp, Steve Smith, and Cooper Kupp. Not only this, but Chase also became the first receiver in league history to ever eclipse both 1,700 receiving yards and 17 receiving touchdowns in a single season. But nobody is talking about it. By the end of this video, you're gonna know why.
You had the breaking news from San Francisco. Jamar Chase sat out practice again yesterday. His availability for week 1 is very much up in the air. Unlike a lot of the other players who had holdouts or hold-ins this offseason, he still has 2 years left on his rookie deal, but he wants the new contract.
I think there are problems here, right? 2 years left on the deal. The Bengals really don't like to do that. They made an exception for Joe Burrow. If he's looking for guaranteed money beyond the first year, the Bengals don't do that. They made an exception for Joe Burrow. If he's trying to make more than Justin Jefferson, then the Bengals can go back and say, well, Justin Jefferson waited till after year 4, like in year after year 3. So there are hurdles that may not be able to be cleared in terms of getting this deal done. And then what we'll find out is he willing to skip regular season games or an entire regular season in order to get what he wants? That's what's on the table here at this point.
Everything is on the table for a team that wants to win the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah. September 2024. The Cincinnati Bengals are coming off a disappointing end of a 2023 campaign that saw them narrowly miss the postseason with a 9-8 record after making an improbable trip to the Super Bowl just 2 years prior. This fall from grace in the 2023 season came mainly as a result of their quarterback Joe Burrow going down with a torn ligament in his right wrist that cut his season short. Heading into the 2024 season, many looked at the Bengals as real threats in the AFC now that Burrow was back. They were the only team in the conference that had proven they were more than capable of taking down the Chiefs, most notably so in the 2021 AFC Championship.
I have nothing but faith in this Cincinnati Bengals team going into this year.
And they probably feel like, hey, this is our year. Let's go win a Super Bowl right now. This is our time.
However, even with the high hopes that the Bengals had, it appeared as if there was some trouble in paradise. Just days before the season was set to kick off, Chase was still refusing to suit up and practice with the team. While he did attend team practices, he was not going to risk an injury while he was going to war with the team's front office for a much-deserved contract extension. Not only this, but over the offseason, the Bengals also lost veteran running back Joe Mixon in a trade with the Texans.
Cincinnati Bengals are trading running back Joe Mixon to the Houston Texans.
Joe Mixon is no scrub. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards 2 of the last 3 seasons, hasn't missed a game in 2 of the last 3 seasons, only missed a couple of games or 3 games last season. I like Joe Mixon a lot. I think this is a loss for the Cincinnati Bengals.
With under a week until the regular season kicked off, it appeared as if the Bengals were going to be without their 2 best skill players from the season prior, and this was the last thing you wanted to see as a Super Bowl contending team. While Mixon was off to Houston, cooler heads would prevail in the standoff between Chase and the Bengals front office, and he would end up suiting up for the team's Week 1 matchup against the Patriots. In the opening game of the season, many expected this to be an easy win for the Bengals against what appeared to be a much inferior opponent. But as the game dragged on, it was clear that Cincinnati was not giving Chase his full reps, as he only played a season-low 84% of the team's offensive snaps. When he was on the field, though, he did make the most of his opportunities, pulling in all 6 of his targets for 62 yards. Even with a decent debut from Chase, the Bengals looked far from the Super Bowl contending team that many saw them as coming into the season, and they suffered an embarrassing 16-10 loss.
There's a few things that I've been touting over the last couple of weeks. Makes it seem like I spoke a little too soon. This is one of them. I had the Bengals winning the division, and I got Joe Burrow as the MVP of the league. He had trouble, and part of the reason why he had trouble is T. Higgins wasn't there, and the Bengals didn't pay Jamar Chase. It's that simple. When Jamar Chase showed up on the Saturday injury report or Friday injury report as being questionable, part of the reason was illness. Yeah. Here's the illness. The illness is pay me.
In week 2, things didn't improve for Chase or the Bengals. In what was one of the most hyped up games of the regular season against the Kansas City Chiefs, the star wideout was held to just 35 yards on 4 catches, and Cincinnati narrowly lost 26-25, dropping to 0-2. In their next game against the Commanders, it appeared as if Chase had finally gotten back into the swing of things, and he was looking like his old self. He completely showed out for 118 yards and a pair of touchdowns on only 6 catches. However, even with his heroic effort, Cincinnati still dropped their 3rd straight game to open up the season.
Let's just talk about the Bengals here. You are what you are. You're 0-3. Jamar Chase saying that we're the team to beat in the AFC. We just got to play like it.
Luckily for Cincinnati, they had a get-right game the following week against the Panthers. Chase put together a very respectable performance, going for 85 yards and a touchdown on only 3 catches. The Bengals were finally able to get their first win of the season. Despite having a bit of a gimme against the Panthers, they had a very tough team in the Baltimore Ravens waiting for them as their next opponent. Jamar put the Ravens secondary in a blender in this matchup, and they had absolutely no answer for him, allowing him to record 10 catches for 193 yards and a pair of scores. Once again, even with an otherworldly performance from Chase, it wasn't enough to elevate his team to a win, as they fell in overtime by a final score of 41-38. Despite the loss, it was quickly becoming clear that even with the late start to the season, Chase was going to be a problem for every defense that had to try to slow him down in the 2024 season. Over the next 4 games, the Bengals were able to rattle off 3 wins against the Giants, Browns, and Raiders, while falling to the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. During this stretch, Chase was still playing at a high level, combining for 26 catches, 224 yards, and 2 touchdowns, but this was nothing compared to what he had in store for the Bengals Week 10 matchup against the Ravens. Both Chase and his teammates were back with a vengeance after narrowly falling to Baltimore earlier in this season. While he torched the team in the first matchup, he went on to have an even better game, arguably the best game of his entire career in this second meeting. He was absolutely everywhere, and no matter what the Ravens threw at him, they once again had no answer for him. He finished the day with a mind-blowing 264 yards and 3 touchdowns on 11 catches, but this elite effort was in vain as Cincinnati was once again barely taken down by Baltimore, 35-34.
There's the Bengals, and Jamar Chase can say he was open. He can put up 600 yards in a game if he wants. They're 4-6. They've played 10 games. They've lost 6 of them.
Even though the Bengals as a team could not get things clicking on both sides of the ball, Jamar was making damn sure that the offense was playing at a high level. In the next 2 games, he combined for 13 catches, 161 yards, and 3 touchdowns, but Cincinnati was defeated by both the Chargers and the Steelers. If you couldn't tell already by the information that I'm giving you, the Bengals defense was costing these games. I mean, the offense could score 60 points and their defense was going to give up 61. While we've seen time and time again, diva wideouts in the league shut down if things aren't going their team's way, this was not the case for Chase, and he kept torching any secondary that had the misfortune of lining up against him. His Week 14 victims were the Dallas Cowboys, and like many other teams in the 2024 season, they also had no answer for him. Chase finished this matchup with a dominant 177 yards and a pair of scores on 14 catches.
On second down, Chase is in for the touchdown.
But the cherry on top, this elite effort actually did end up with a win, 27-20. With the season coming to an end and award season right around the corner, the conversation for Chase to bring home the Offensive Player of the Year award began to heat up.
Jamar Chase, 14 catches, 177, 2 scores. Chase is the first receiver to have 10 catches, $175, 2 touchdowns in 2 games since Jamar Chase did it in Week 10 against the Ravens. Guess what? He's also the first receiver to do it since Jamar Chase did it in Week 5.
Hey, that boy good.
Through the final 4 games of the season, Chase continued to put up impressive performance after impressive performance as he closed in on the Triple Crown. He went for 94 yards against the Titans, 97 yards and a touchdown against the Browns, 102 yards against the Denver Broncos and 96 yards and a score in the final game of the regular season against the Steelers. Along with this, the Bengals wound up winning out, finishing the regular season with a 9-8 record for the second straight year. They had done what they could, winning their final 5 games, but their postseason hopes were not in their hands anymore and instead came down to a Week 18 matchup between the Broncos and the Chiefs. If the Chiefs were able to win this game, it would secure Cincinnati a spot in the playoffs. However, with Kansas City already clinching the top spot in the AFC and nobody really wanting to see a red-hot Bengals offense in the playoffs, they chose to rest their starters and the Broncos killed them 38-0. This not only put an end to Cincinnati's late Cinderella story, but made it almost a certainty that Chase was going to be snubbed come awards day, as it's very rare for players on teams that miss the postseason to come anywhere close to sniffing awards like Offensive Player of the Year or MVP. Despite the Bengals not making the postseason, Chase had a year to remember, ending his campaign with 127 catches, 1,708 receiving yards, and 17 touchdowns, leading the league in all 3 of these statistical categories and becoming just the 5th player since 1990 to win the Triple Crown. While he was awarded with a spot in the Pro Bowl and the All-Pro First Team, what if I told you he didn't even finish top 2 in Offensive Player of the Year award voting? Chase wound up coming in 3rd place in the award voting behind Lamar Jackson and the eventual winner of the award, Saquon Barkley. While there's no question that both of these players had fantastic seasons and they were more than deserving of the award, it does raise the question of what more Chase would have to do to really take home the Offensive Player of the Year award. Shockingly, when looking back at the other Triple Crown winners in NFL history, a very odd trend starts to emerge. When Jerry Rice became the first to do it in 1990, he placed 5th in Offensive Player of the Year voting behind Barry Sanders, Joe Montana, Randall Cunningham, and Warren Moon. When Sterling Sharp won the Triple Crown just 2 years later, he came in 4th place for Offensive Player of the Year behind Emmitt Smith, Barry Foster, and Steve Young. It took over a decade for another wide receiver to win the Triple Crown, with Steve Smith Sr. doing so in 2005. Shockingly, he didn't even place top 5 in the Offensive Player of the Year voting. Finally, before Chase, Cooper Kupp was the most recent Triple Crown winner in 2021, where he made history as the only one to ever bring home the Offensive Player of the Year award. There isn't much more Chase could have done to win this award, to be honest. He did more than his fair share of heavy lifting to get this Bengals team into the playoffs, and even if they did make it in, there's a chance that he still would have lost out to both Jackson and Barkley. While Chase had a truly elite season, very few players in NFL history could have competed with the year that Barkley had in 2024. Finishing the campaign with 2,005 rushing yards and 13 rushing touchdowns, leading the league with 345 carries along with taking home the rushing title. Had he played the final game of the regular season, there is also a strong chance that he would have broken Eric Dickerson's all-time rushing record as well. Even with how impressive Chase's 2024 campaign was, it was all but impossible for any other player to keep pace with Barkley. And to put the cherry on top, the Eagles were one of the top teams in the league heading into the postseason, where Chase's Bengals failed to make the playoffs. All these factors came together to culminate in Chase having one of the most overlooked and underrated seasons of all time. There's a strong chance that in a few years, Chase's 2024 season gets overlooked unless the past Triple Crown winners are mentioned. Even with this historic season from their star wide receiver, it does raise questions of what is next for not only Chase, but the Bengals team as a whole.
I got a problem with your team. I got a problem with the fact that 5 of the last 6 years, y'all started out 0-2. And in the month of September, I've actually called for an investigation into the coaching staff of the Cincinnati Bengals, because I don't understand why the hell in the month of September it's such a struggle for y'all year after year after year. Should one of the discussions be, under no circumstances do we lose a Jamar Chase, that's a brother that needs to stay in Cincinnati as long as you're there?
Yes, of course. Everybody sees what he does on the field week in and week out for us. He's a guy that continues to make big-time plays every single time he touches the field. So when you have a guy like that, you can't let him leave the building.
What about T. Higgins, Joe?
Yeah, that's a guy that we got to keep too. When he's on the field, he's a game changer for us, not only for our team, but for Jamar. You know, teams can't just focus in on him and double him and cloud him. They have to worry about T. Higgins on the other side of the field. We have the space that we need to keep both of those guys.
I have to confess, I'm very worried about you with what you're saying. We got to keep Jamar Chase. We got to keep T. Higgins. We got to keep Trey Hendrickson. You got to keep a whole bunch. This is Cincinnati. Cincinnati now. I mean, this is that ownership. You confident they're going to be willing to keep all of those guys?
2025 marks the final year of Chase's deal as he's going into his 5th year with the team. While he could be forced to spend the year in Cincinnati whether the contract extension is reached or not, it is clear that after the 2024 season that he had, he's going to have the upper hand in the negotiations, much more so than he did when the two sides were at a stalemate coming into the 2024 season. Chase really has nothing left to prove after bringing home the Triple Crown, and he really should get the money that he's looking for. He has made it clear that he wants to be the highest paid wide receiver in football, and it's hard to argue that he's not deserving of that type of contract following the year that he just had, leading the position in all 3 major stat categories, not to mention he just turned 25 years old as well. The Bengals brought out the Brinks trucks when it came time for Burrow to sign the extension, and now it's time to do the same with Chase. If they don't want to, I'm sure another team is going to be more than happy to do so.
We all want to stay together, so we're all going to do what it takes to do that. You know, we have great players that have done great things and deserve to be paid. They're going to be paid what they're worth, whether we do it or somebody else. I hope we do it. I think, you know, we've had the discussions that the guys are going to get paid that need to get paid, and so it's a big offseason for the Bengals.
It's very clear that Burrow is adamant on the front office showing Chase the same generosity as they showed him when he was made the highest paid player at his position when he signed his contract extension, but time will tell if Cincinnati follows through. You would think that the last thing the organization would want would be to not only lose one of the best wide receivers in the league, but also have an unhappy quarterback on top of missing that number 1 guy. Burrow and Chase have proven themselves as the most dangerous quarterback wide receiver duo the league has had to offer, and it would be truly a shame to miss out on even one season of them together if Chase doesn't get his desired deal. However, if they are able to put together a good 2025 draft class, along with revamping their defense through free agency, they could have a real shot at the title. It would also benefit them if they could hang on to their top 3 guys on expiring contracts in Chase, Hendrickson, and Higgins. It was recently announced that the Bengals plan to franchise tag Higgins in 2025, but as far as Chase goes, it will be very interesting to see if he's able to keep up this run of dominance in 2025 and become the only player in NFL history to become a 2-time Triple Crown winner or even surpass his otherworldly stat line from 2024.